Good evening and welcome to this edition of In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. I'm Eric Marsh, Executive Director of WCTV. Glad you're able to join us for this hour-long conversation, an area that we have not touched on during the time that we've been doing In Focus, so a new topic for us, and I'm excited to have a conversation with my guest. Have to remind you, yes, this is broken record time. The 2020 primary and general elections will be coming up this year. We want to make sure that you are registered to vote. If you have not registered, you can do that. A couple of ways of getting it done: in person, 301 East Main Street in Richmond, Monday 8:30 to 5, Tuesday through Friday 8:30 to 4:30. Easiest way, again, to do it is just online. That seems to be how we do a lot of things these days. You can check your voter status, you can find voting locations, or you can register to vote just by going to indianavoters.com. That's indianavoters.com, a very mobile-friendly site. For more information, there's a number there on the screen, which will take you to the clerk's office. The website underneath that, co.wayne.ian.us/clerk/voter-reg, will also take you to the clerk's website. But indianavoters.com is a place that they also point you to. So we're going to point you there also and remind you at the end of this program to make sure that you are registered to vote. Our guest today is Derek White, who is Executive Director of the Housing Authority for the City of Richmond.
Housing Authority of the City of Richmond.
Of the City of Richmond. I was close.
Yes.
That's a long title.
Yeah.
Appreciate you being here.
Glad for the invitation. Appreciate it.
Let's start with you. A little bit of background on you. I would say lifelong resident of Richmond, but that's not quite correct.
Pretty close, yeah. Born and raised in Richmond, August 12, 57, and grew up on the north side of Richmond, 800 block of North H, and we were frequent visitors, if you will, and participants with Townsend Center and Boys and Girls Club for myself as well. And then I also came up through Nicholson Elementary School, Test Middle School, and then Richmond High School. Graduated midterm in '75. I could have actually gotten out. The year would have been a senior. The year I would have turned 17. I would have gotten out. Would have to do my senior year, but I wanted to be nosy and be involved. So I kind of just took 2 classes for the last semester, just to kind of go from the school from 8 to 10. And basically got out at 10 and then went to work at Davis Jewelers at the time. But I actually could have graduated that summer as a junior, technically. I had all the credits and everything.
Okay.
But I had to kind of stay with the folks and see what was going on and be nosy. So anyway.
Take that underwater basket weaving class.
Yeah, so start off at Davis Jewelers. I had a paper route with the Palladium at 12. And one of my high school teachers, Mr. Robert Smith, said I need to get a job. I said, well, I have a job. I work at the Palladium. And he said, well, you need a real job. I said, that is a real job. So we're going back and forth. So anyway, at the time, there were various businesses around the city who actually had high school kids come in and work. And so I started off at Davis Jewelers, and I was making a whopping $1.65 an hour. I made a nickel more than the minimum wage, and I was real excited. I stayed there about 4 years, and I went to Phillips Recording Company, PRC, and then left there and went to D&M. And I worked at D&M until '81, and with that work, I made dishwashers for Sears and Kenmore. So I was laid off from there at the time and decided to visit my sister in California during the time I was laid off. And this was in February. And in California, go out there 75 or 80 degrees and nice and breezy, and I'm like, wow, this is... So I ended up moving out there in April of '81. And then began my tenure with housing out there around the same time. And I talked with my sister about work at the property we lived at. It was public housing property. And she said, you wouldn't want to work here. I said, why? Because it's only $4 an hour. Well, I was making $9 at D&M. Okay. I said, I just want to work. I don't care. So I started off in public housing in Oakland with a broom and dustpan at a 700-unit complex, basically cleaning up. And it was about eight blocks by 3 blocks, a pretty good size property. Yeah. And picking up paper, cans, trash, and certain parts of the property was a lot of crime, and so cleaning up bullet casings from shootings and those kind of things. And I went from there to maintenance technician trainee, where they were training me how to do work orders to fix sinks and stoves and those kind of things. Then I went to a maintenance technician. Then I went to a technician trainer where I trained people. Went from there to an inspector, from inspector to a bookkeeper, and bookkeeper to resident manager in the space of 4.5 years. And left there and went to San Mateo County Housing Authority as an inspector, then a team supervisor, a housing operations supervisor, then a housing operations manager. And that was in a space of 14 years, so that 19 years in California. So there was an article when I first came back that the Playdom wrote, and they said he literally started from the ground up, which I did. So I came here as executive director of the Housing Authority of the City of Richmond. But I had a lot of experience out there, from literally from the ground up. Worked with Congress and Senate representatives a lot. I was kind of the spokesperson for my director in San Mateo County. He was a good friend of Cuomo, who's now the governor of New York. At the time, he was the secretary of HUD, and they were very close. And so he got a lot of things, when we needed for our area, which was nice,
Okay.
And so came back here as a director, and been here since March of 2000. And have an excellent board and staff. Always say to the, when I do public speaking, I was at the Rotary several years ago, and then there's a retired group from Earlham. They're professors and doctors and so forth, and they meet at the Friends building on 7th and Northwest 7th. How what the staff and board does makes me look like I know what I'm doing. So I appreciate their hard work and investment in what we're trying to do in helping people and so forth. So
You seem like you've got some board members that have been long time
Yes.
involved in public housing here in Richmond.
yes, our board president, Ron Mays, was the very first director, and he's been on the board ever since, so 50 plus years as a board member, and he was the original director. And so a lot of wealth and history there that we've been able to draw from experiencing with him. So, yeah.
How did you get involved in pastoring a church before we move on?
Well, that goes way back to here, and then when I was actually 14, we had a very high-spirited worship experience at the old Second Baptist, at the old building across the street from the current building on North G. And I was 14, and at the time, Reverend Barber, who was my pastor, was leading worship, and we were all in prayer. And I had kept reading before this. I kept reading a passage in Scripture that says, "Whereunto I'm appointed a preacher and a teacher to the Gentiles." And I kept, and it always seemed to jump at me every time. And so I got to really kind of praying about that, and kind of worrying. And then that one Sunday, it was clear that that's what they wanted me to do, but I fought it. I thought that I could just say no and go on about my business and help out in other ways. And through time, every once in a while, the Lord would speak to me, and I wouldn't just try to back off of it, didn't want to do it, and put it off for a long time. And even in California, there were times where I almost said, I need to go on and get this over with. But in 2008, I think that was it, when it kind of painted me into a corner. And I really didn't have a choice, and had to go and acknowledge, first of all, my call to preach, which I've been struggling with. I was in denial. And then, of course, in 2014, I became pastor of Mount Olive Baptist Church. I succeeded the previous pastor there, who was there 38 years, Reverend Ernest Randall, and he's now retired. So, yeah. And then, of course, in California, my current pastor, Dr. Lester Cannon Sr., has invested. He, Pastor Randall, and Reverend Barber have invested much in my life. So much of what I do, say, teach, all is a part of what they've given to me. So I always tell them, sometime I'll blame you guys for whatever people think is your fault. So
Well, it's good to have you back home.
good. It's good to be back. Yes.
Talk about what you know, and you have a lot of history with public housing here in Richmond. Let's start with the number of units, where they are,
Okay.
locations, because I don't think on a day in, day out basis, we don't think about those.
Okay.
We
Right.
drive through some of what people call the project areas, but it's more than that.
Absolutely. Yes. For historically, as far as the beginning, back in 1967, there was a group dealing with habitable and uninhabitable homes, and at the time, Richmond had 1,400 plus uninhabitable homes. And the group was called Building a Better America. And just shortly after that, they had done a study, and then, of course, the explosion happened in 1968 here. And our good friend, our late friend, Andrew Sisir, was part of a group, he and Gail Gardner, who was one of the Housing Authority's attorneys for a long time. Both of those guys are excellent. I mean, excellent. I wish they were still practicing. Very good guys. And, of course, Andy's gone now, but he went to the Department of Housing and Urban Development and talked with Mitt Romney's dad, who was the Secretary of HUD at the time. And, Andy's real knowledgeable and had read a book that Mr. Romney had written and got a couple of quotes out of the book before he left. So that was part of his strategy. So he goes, talks to Romney, lets him know about the explosion here in Richmond, and we've had these things going on. We're trying to build up homes anyway. There's already been a study about trying to get some homes and so forth and build the city back up. And Romney said, well, we don't have any money. We'll talk to you a little later on, and it's been nice meeting you, so we'll get back to you. So Andy's walking out of the room, and he turns back and says, by the way, I heard a quote from a great author. And he quoted whatever it was Romney said. Then he turned around. He said, wait, come back. That was me. He says, that was you? He said, come on in my office. So he comes in the office, and today we have, as a result of that, 303 total public housing units. Now, they wanted to give us 500 and something, but the board said that might be too many to start off with. So we have 303, and we were one of the first agencies in the country to actually have the units scattered, because initially they wanted everybody in one place. And so we have 100 units on the north side of town between North 13th and North 17th and North H and North J, and called the Bobby Smith Apartments. Those are family units. We have 50 units at Southview, which is between South J and South L and South 16th and South 18th, across from Boys and Girls Club. Those are family units. We have 50 units on the west side, Jerry Geyer Apartments, formerly called Westwood, and that's at 2001 West Main. Those are 50 family units. And we have 103, 104 units at the Merle Henderson building on 14th and A on South 14th, and they named after one of the early board members, Merle Henderson. Since that time, we also have 4 what's called Home Ownership Opportunity Program homes, or HOOP homes. And those homes, they're based on the tenant's rent. They pay a certain portion, and 2/3 of their rent goes into an escrow account, where after a certain time they're able to take out the escrow account and buy the home and it'll be in their name. Problem we're having now is the banks are kind of tight, and the credit and so forth is not as perfect or wherever, so people are doing some credit repair things in order to be able to purchase the homes. And then we also have 13 homes that have been deeded to us from the city of Richmond through the stimulus program, through the neighborhood stabilization program. So in those homes, they'll be able to purchase within a 15 to 20 year period. We just got those like last 5 or 6 years, but it's been 15 to 20 years or so they'll be able to buy them if they want to. Nice homes, very nice homes. And so, but it all started with Andy and Mitt Romney's dad.
Is that a homeowner idea new to public housing? Is that something that's been going on for a while?
Actually, it has. It's been going on. We're also one of the first 2 or 3 agencies in the nation to have what's called turnkey 3 homes. And back in the 70s and 80s, homes that you see at Riley Hills Court, Irish Hills Court, there's some on North 13th, North 16th, North 15th, South 12th, South 13th. They're small brick ranch homes. And we had 73 of those, and all of those have been sold to former public housing residents. So that was going on with us way back in the 70s and 80s. And again, one of the first in the country to do that. That's something a lot of people don't know, but I think we were given some kind of recognition through HUD back at that time.
Is that a program that you hope to continue? Are you investing some of what they're paying back into purchasing other homes and keeping that going, or is there just a flat number of homes that's possible,
well,
and when they're done, they're done?
Actually, no, we want to do that in the future with our NSP homes at some point.
Okay.
But right now, all the turnkey 3s were sold, and then we ran into a little snag with some of the HOOP homes, and again, based on credit worthiness and banks willing to work with some of the people. And we're hoping to be able to have that way there, homeowners paying into a tax base, et cetera. And it really kind of diminishes and washes away this idea that public housing is people, they're dealing drugs, they're having babies, and it's not all like that. It's a whole lot more to it. As a matter of fact, when I lived in Oakland, I lived in public housing when I first moved out there. and I'm a product of public housing, and I'm a director now at that. So, and I'm not the best thing, but I mean, I don't know. My wife may say I am, but anyway, we'll see when she sees it. I don't know. but there's been a lot of good people that have come through public housing, and then the other thing too. I don't know if we'll get into it later, but we have several kids. I won't name them. I guess I know I probably got to get releases. I'm not sure, but we got kids, a brother and sister now who live in Toledo. He is a pastor and also a principal of a school. He started off as assistant principal. He was assigned the most troubled school in Toledo and turned it around in less than a year. He's from public housing. His sister has a PhD and works in the social service area in Detroit, Michigan. Okay. We have another young man who went to Rose-Hulman, but Princeton was recruiting him, and I kept saying, Princeton. You know, he says, I want to be close to home. I said, but Princeton, they came here 4 times.
Really?
He worked at McDonald's. He ran track, played football, wrestled, was a 4-point-something student, and but wanted to stay close. So went to Rose-Hulman, which is no, slouchy school at all. And he left 1 year. He's graduated now, but he left 1 year to develop an energy drink. And he and one of his professors worked together to do this. So they developed this energy drink, and now the Missouri Valley Conference uses that drink for their entire sports portfolio as part of their diet. And here's a kid out of public housing. His sister managed some restaurants in Indianapolis, chain of restaurants, and did extremely well. And then we've got another kid who was we had 3 actually that were Youth of the Year at Boys and Girls Club over a period of time. And one of the kids was second in the state for Youth of the Year and got some kind of award from the United States Army Quartermaster General, where he came to actually give her award in Indianapolis. And because you always hear the negative and never hear the positive about it. And we've got a lot of adults even have gone back to school, got masters. One got a teaching in master's, and another one ended up with her bachelor's from IU East, and was doing several things in the community and actually going back to work with residents and so forth. So it's been a blessing to be able to work with people and to see people progress and develop, as a result of the exposure that they've gotten. I could go on and on. I've got several other stories.
But you've been in and around public housing
yes.
for a long time here, and you mentioned the 19 years in Oakland. Are there more stories like what you're saying
Absolutely.
than there really are the downside, the bad side? And you talked about sweeping up bullet casings in part of it. I grew up in suburban Chicago. Cabrini Greens and a number of different areas all had the stories, the stories. They were all negative, though.
Right. Yeah.
How do you, as a director, overcome the thought process that's out there that everybody in public housing, one, doesn't work, which I don't think that's even possible because they have to pay rent,
Absolutely.
don't they?
Yes.
Okay. So the people in public housing aren't working, are only causing trouble. How do you help wipe away that stigma?
One of the things that I appreciate this forum, to be able to come here and talk with you to talk about it. The others would be, in many cases, like in Oakland, when I was there, actually being at the schools and then at school council meetings, talking and interacting with people at the schools and having the kids there that are achieving. There have been so many cases where I had a kid in Oakland from the complex we were at, and by the way, I can probably use his name, Antonio Davis. He used to play for the Pacers.
Yeah.
He was a good friend of another young man who actually kept the neighborhood safe while the kids were going back and forth to school in the morning and in the afternoon. I had no clue. I just moved there from here, and Antonio was helping him, and another kid, you probably heard of Gary Payton. They played together. And so I saw Antonio and the other, the name was Remy, saw them at a mall, and he says, Mr. White, because we had my daughter with me, and I said, is this your daughter used to go to kindergarten? I said, yeah. He said, I can tell you this now. Now, she's in her 20s now, at the time. Now she's 40. But he says, did you ever notice when you went to work and she went to school that there was no traffic on the street in the morning or afternoon? I said, yeah. And they were actually keeping the place safe. Gang members, in this case, but keeping the place safe. And Antonio wasn't part of the gang, but he was friends with the guys. But they were keeping it safe, making sure nobody would come down, no shootings, whatever. Kind of almost like a security kind of thing, to deter things. Then others, my son played with a young man who did so well on the SAT. Now, he went to Castlemont High School. The whole starting five, they did an article on them because they all did well on the SAT. They all did well. They were the first team to beat the Richmond, California team. In the We Are Richmond movie, that movie?
Yeah.
Well, they had an 11 or 12 game. The 13th game, they didn't show that one. My son's team beat them. But Brian, young man, he did so well on the SAT from public housing that they said, well, no kid in this school has ever done this well. So they made him take it again. And he took it again and scored higher. It is a public housing kid. And so that went viral because of his dad kind of didn't let that go, so it went viral. But the other thing is talking positive to them and having them not to react but to respond to people's perceptions about them and to never live out the perceptions of what people think about you. You be who you are, no matter what they think about you. And just let them know you're no better. We're all equal in God's sight. And live out what you really are and don't become what people think you are. And that's been a big help. But the school site council meetings has been a real big help with, because you have a mix of public housing and open market or people that aren't public housing that have to interact sometime. And it's there was a whole new respect and appreciation as a result of a lot of that. So teach them not to react to a lot of things. It's been a big help.
Talk about some of the rules. I mean, for public housing, there's payment schedule, there's rule. Talk about some of what people go through.
Yeah, the biggest thing as far as they got to be income eligible, and once they apply, there's a certain income standard per as far as your family composition per bedroom size, and that schedule comes out every February or March. As far as income and family composition formulas, you gotta pay the rent, obviously. Now, partly, real quickly, some of our biggest problems happen from people who don't live at the property. 95% of our problems happen from other people who don't even live there. They're visiting or coming in, so they bring stuff with them.
Okay.
But paying the rent, being a good citizen. In some cases, if they have no income, there's what's called a community service requirement, where they have to do community service for 8 hours a month in some capacity. Okay. We've had them volunteer at Reed Hospital sometime. They volunteered at Boys and Girls Club. When Townsend was open, they volunteered there. They help in the building, help maybe clean the building or help with other residents with running errands. One group, they've actually got a walking group for physical exercise for an older group. And so that's been going. So they have a variety of things to do, but if they don't have income, and if they're working, if they're able-bodied, between 18 and 62, and not working, either be in school full-time or you have to do this community service requirement in order to continue to be eligible for the program. The biggest other problem we have is people that are living with people who aren't on a lease. That can cause problems. And then, of course, HUD is Housing and Urban Development, has what's called an enterprise income verification, where if a person doesn't report income, it's going to catch up with them within 2 or 3 months and say, okay, this is what your income is. You only reported this. You got to pay this back, or be terminated, or in some cases go to jail, depending on the amount of money involved. So people don't have a problem when they have a decrease in income. We open at 8:30. And sometimes they're there at 7 or 7:30 waiting on us so they can fill out the form to get a decrease in rent. But the increase is, just, I forgot, that's right, I need to come by and do that, but it slipped my mind, So.
The name of the organization is Housing Authority of the City of Richmond. You're not a department of the City of Richmond.
Right.
Explain the relationship and the name.
Yeah,
Because we were looking on the city website going, it's got to be here someplace.
Yeah, we actually are a separate legal entity. We're funded by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, even though we operate within the jurisdiction of the city of Richmond. And so the mayor has the say over what board members we have. And so he actually appoints board members. But that's pretty much the only influence or as far that the city has over the housing authority. But everything else, we're a separate legal entity. And there are some housing authorities that are incorporated within the city, but ours isn't one of them.
Okay. I know we've got some pictures of some renovation of. This is a particular unit, or are you going through and doing renovation of a number of units?
All 303 public housing units.
All 303 public housing units. When did you begin the renovation process, and how long will it take?
That started about a year ago, and we've actually been in the plans about 2 years for that particular part. But it's going to take probably 3.5 years to do the whole thing.
Got some pictures up on the screen.
Yeah. And that's like a model unit. The table's kind of big for the kitchen, but we didn't think it would be that big when we went to Big Lots to get it. But yeah, those are we're doing upstairs bathroom remodels in all the units, and at the units at the Bobby Smith Apartments on the north side, we're doing all new floors upstairs, along with the bathroom remodels, and then we're going to be doing in addition stair treads on all units throughout that have stairs. And then some of the units at Smith, we're also going to actually be doing the floors downstairs with the same flooring we'll see in a few minutes, like that right there.
Okay.
So beautiful units, and one of the things that one of my bosses in maintenance told me years ago, he says, when you get done rehabbing a unit, you need to ask yourself a question. I said, what's that? He said, would you live here? And he was an old Marine guy, and so we literally had to scrub sliding patio door, rails, and windows with toothbrushes, literally. And so when we had zero vacancy, maybe 1 or 2 vacancies out of the 700 some units we had, and one of them was a long vacancy because of a fire. But other than that, we had people in there all the time. And he also did the white glove test, where he took a white glove and we couldn't see any dirt on the white glove, or you'd be in trouble. So we always wiping down vacant units till we can get somebody in there. So.
Do you have many vacant units? Obviously we talked about stereotypes.
Yeah.
Stereotypes are people get in this housing and they never leave.
Yeah.
You're obviously not seeing
No,
that.
we have, because you have a different tenant nowadays. Now, we do have some tenants that's been there since the inception of property, but you have a lot more mobile tenant these days than you have. And we got right now about 30 vacancies total because many of them are under renovation. We've actually taken them offline to actually do the work that we're doing in some of these units now.
Okay.
And then we've actually we're going to be purging the waiting list because we got units available, but then people want to live in certain ones. It's like Southview is the main place everybody wants to be at because it's across the street from Boys and Girls Club. Okay. And then, of course, now on the west side, there's a new Boys and Girls Club. So that can kind of alleviate some of those vacancies at some point because that's a selling point where kids be able to have other types of activities in the evenings and so forth. But and so we have a lot of people that want to live in a certain place, or they want a certain kind of unit. So and so they'll wait until something comes up, and it may not be for a while that it'll come up. But we're actually going to be doing some marketing of the units, and not only with the model units, but actually doing some outreach in the community and taking some more applications for those who want to wait on a Southview or Bobby Smith. If they want to wait, then we'll get others who want what we got available, and we'll get them moved in. And so I really enjoyed being there all these 20 years, and like I said, good people to work with, and that makes the job so much better. So.
All right.
Yeah.
We need to talk about the Nicholson School area. You mentioned that. We need to talk about Townsend Community Center.
Sure.
We'll get to that. We're going to take a short break
Okay.
and be back with more In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV, Channel 11.
I'm Melissa Vance with the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce, and I'd like to invite you to the next Chamber Chat, where we will be talking all things legislature at the state level with our representative, Jason Beers from the Indiana Chamber.
There's been some suggestion that the Congress might take this up before the holidays, so
Be sure to tune in Tuesday evening, WETV Channel 20.
Hi, my name is Travis Lang, voice of the IU East Red Wolves and host of Inside IU East Sports. I'm here talking weekly with players and coaches of the IU East teams and just talking about sports and, well, anything and everything in general. Tune in every Friday at 8:30 p.m. for Inside IU East Sports on WETV.
Girls Inc. of Wayne County inspires all girls to be strong, smart, bold.
Through interactive girls-only programming.
Kindergarten through 8th grade. Come join us at Girls Inc.
Hi, I'm Tim Scales, the Director of the Center for Entrepreneurship and the host of In Your Business. Join us for our next episode when our guest will be representing the Corner Cafe.
I had always wanted to own my own business, and the goal was to hit it by 50. And I'm like, well, I better get with it. So it came to be then.
You can watch In Your Business Tuesday nights at 9:30 on WETV Channel 20.
Welcome back to In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. We're talking about the Housing Authority of the City of, for the City of Richmond, of the City of Richmond. There's an of the City of Richmond in there somewhere. We'll do that. Our guest is Derek White.
HACR.
A couple of things. When we talk about the Housing Authority that I know a couple of people are going to want some updates on. Let's start with Townsend Community Center. The building, because we actually had conversation with Lucinda Wright about Townsend Center, the organization, and the separation between those two. And I will say that I didn't understand it. At one point when I heard that Townsend Center was operating, I went, no, the building is closed.
Right, yes.
Housing Authority has always had at least a percentage, I think, of Townsend Community Center, the building, but you all are in complete control now. Talk a little bit about that relationship, how it came about, what shape the building is in now, and we assume it's going to reopen.
Yes. The Housing Authority has owned a portion of Townsend, 22% of Townsend since 1971. And most of the others, all the other sites we have a community space for the residents. In this case, in lieu of a community space, the board at that time decided to help Townsend with the building by actually being a part owner and then providing a community space for the residents in Townsend. So instead of building a building somewhere else on the north side, that's where they operated out of. And so we've had what's called a maintenance fee. We've given them every year for a while. We've done some other renovations in there over time. Windows, roofs, elevators, kitchens, and so forth. And I think about 3-4 years ago, we were able to go ahead and just purchase the remaining amount of a loan that had been taken out for it. And so we own it outright now. We've actually, the building's been cleaned out. A new roof's been put on.
Was that the main problem? Was the roof the main problem?
Well, there was several
other.
The roof was the main, and then there were several other things with heating and those kind of things. And so we actually are, as we speak this week, the pads are going to be poured for the new HVAC system. Going to be some units outside and then piped through. The gym's being painted, and we're going to have a new clock up, new floor. And then there'll be a lot of other cosmetic type of things with walls and floor, new flooring and walls being painted and so forth in preparation for some tenants that we feel really good about that will be moving in. That's going to be a blessing and a wonder to the community to help revitalize it. Townsend has been the building, and of course the organization has been a staple in that community for a very long time. And again, I'm a product of Townsend as well. I have a dual theme because I'm also a product of Boys and Girls Club, and then the Townsend 501c have agreed to. We're going to also remodel the old charter school building, so they'll actually operate out of the old charter school building. At some point. And that's about 8,000 square feet. And there'll be one or two other entities that'll be in there with them. And so things are moving along, and we were able to, we talked about the Turnkey 3 program earlier. With some of the money that we had from the sale of those homes is what we used from reserves in order to, I think we got like $500,000 from HUD to actually get the work started with that building. And then, of course, a little later on, you'll hear about HHCR Community Services Incorporated, which is going to be a 501c arm of the Housing Authority. And so we're working on that to do other things in the community. My vision is way on down, but in Miami, Florida, and one of my friends in Dallas, the Dallas Housing Authority has a 501c that they actually own a mall.
A shopping mall?
Yes, shopping mall. Yes, the 501c does. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I don't know if we have a mall, but I'm looking at other things coming down the road for us in the future. There's an old saying: if you aim at nothing, you hit it every time. So, and I hadn't even discussed that with the board. So the board, don't get upset with me. I'm just vision. You got to,
Okay. What is the time frame in your mind for being able to reopen Townsend and allow the community to see it, and are you envisioning a celebration when that happens?
Absolutely. Yes, we actually expect the building to be open late summer, early fall.
Okay.
So probably September, October, somewhere in there, it should be open. Now we're going to be making quite a bit of progress in the next 2 or 3 months, and so we're actually going to probably have the Palladium, or maybe if you guys want to come when they get done with the gym, to actually take a look at the gym, get pictures of it, whatever. To see what's going to be coming forward.
Definitely.
And I'm really looking forward to it. I understand as far as the design, Ron, our board president, is just unmatched as far as his ability to do architectural things and some of the things that have been planned. I can't wait for it to happen, so I'm really excited. And the board and a lot of residents are as well, so we're really looking forward to it.
Nice. The Nicholson School area, and you mentioned, again, product of, that building was torn down.
Yes.
There was a proposal put forward, a stellar proposal, I believe it was,
yes,
for some housing and on that particular property.
Right.
That's something that you haven't completely walked away from yet, have you?
Oh, not at all. Not as a matter of fact, I have a follow-up meeting with the developer a week from Monday, 27th. We weren't able to prevail this past time. And it was going to be a total of 24 units on Nicholson, and then we have also another 24 to 25 other sites for infill housing throughout the community. And part of that program would have been what we call Townsend Scholar Homes.
Right.
And basically, a person who's working on their associate degree, they'd be in a 3-year program, 2 years for the degree and a year to transition out. If they're working on their bachelor's degree, it's a 5-year program, 4 years to get their degree and a year to transition out. And basically, you have housing assistance, you have, if you need child care assistance, transportation, those kind of things, whatever you need to help, like bus pass or whatever, to get you back and forth to school, you have everything you need to become self-sufficient, plus also job referrals and those kind of things that will be taking place while you're there to get you ready to be self-sufficient and off the program altogether. And so I've seen it happen in California under what's called a family self-sufficiency program, and I'm confident that it can go here. So we didn't prevail. We were kind of disappointed because we felt we had a very strong application, and Sarah Mitchell actually presented extremely well for the state, and I know we were very close, and I don't know if it had to do with us having already some scholar projects. I mean some. What's the name of it again? I'm on TV. What was it again? Stellar. Yeah, Stellar. I don't know if that had anything to do with our previous Stellar status or not, but I'm really looking forward to this meeting, to go back at it again, because you have to stay with stuff like that. You just have to. And if you keep knocking, eventually they say, okay, there must be a really great need here, and we have that. So
You're there. You have church there, Townsend Community Center. Talk a little bit about, from your perspective, the north end of town, an area where some people feel in some ways it's been neglected. Talk about what you think that area kind of needs right now to revitalize, regenerate.
One would be definitely the Townsend going again. Two would be the Nicholson area to be developed. And I'm again product of that side of town. In my view, when I look back historically, some of the best people this community knows came from the north side of Richmond, on the north side of the tracks. Some of the best people in the world, literally. There are college professors in South Carolina, there are doctors in Atlanta. I mean, I could go on and on. California, all over the country and world. One young man was a news anchor on Wish TV, Channel 8, who now is in Japan. His sister is a professor in North or South Carolina at a college there. But I can go up and down the streets, and there was some that didn't make it, that didn't do well, but it was a very small percentage. We had that It Takes a Village was long before Hillary came up with it. Was long going on. Parents would look out for each other, and then everybody, it's like up the street, down the street, around the corner, and you're doing something that because it was this close-knit community.
It got home before you did.
Yes. And so, Tom Williams was a human resource at Reed. His brother Tim used to be here. The list goes on and on. My sister, human resources at the high school, at the Richmond Community Schools. And it just goes on and on and on for people who are some of the best citizens, again, this world will ever know, that came from the north side. And the other thing, we had a study done, I can't remember, about maybe 2011, 12. A guy named Dave Ciascio came and did a study for the north side, because we wanted to do this big grant with HUD and to redevelop the entire area. And he said, Derek, I've been in Baltimore, Detroit, Cleveland. He started naming Houston, all these big cities. He said, I've never seen people as nice as I've met in this community. He says, when I came here, I was told, be careful, because you might get shot, you might get propositioned from a prostitute. He said, you might be offered drugs. He said, I've had any of that. He said, this is one of the best communities I've ever been in. He's done his work over 30-some years. And then he says, that based on the matrix of the Richmond Police Department, nobody wants to believe this, so you look it up, there's less crime from North E to North J and from North 8th to North 19th than anywhere else in the city of Richmond. Now, you wouldn't believe that because of perception, but there's less crime according to the police's own matrix. And now, there's crime. I'm not going to, there's crime. But it's nowhere. Now, even some cases, there have been some knuckleheads that have come here from other places, and I'm hard-headed. I was in Oakland for a while, and when they want to try to terrorize residents, I don't like it. So, I have to say, if I know where they are, I'll say something to them, And so there's still that community and to some degree there that's taking place, but there's less crime, and it's basically the safest place to live in the city of Richmond. And they can look it up on the city website. It's there.
The Housing Authority, and by extension to a certain extent you, have partnerships with a number of people, particularly on the youth side.
Yes.
We always worried, but no matter where you are, you always worry about your youth, having a place to go, having a place. You all have some nice partnerships going on, Boys and Girls Clubs and some other. Talk about what some of that is.
Boys and Girls Club 1. I'm a past member of CIS, Communities in Schools. I was on that board for about 12 or 13 years. I haven't been with them, but we do have a lot of residents that actually are beneficiaries of the services that they provide. And then also, of course, Townsend, the actual organization. They have like after-school programs that they're part of, and tutorial type things going on. And we've been a part also of Earlham, where they had kids coming and working with our children on the west side. And then I'm trying to think, I'm sure there's some others that work with kids as well. But those are ones that come to my mind right away, and been very beneficial. Like I said, one of our proud things is, again, we've had three of our kids within a 5-year period that were Youth of the Year. the Boys and Girls Club. And I mean, that's, you know, it makes your chest stick out a little bit because that's a very competitive process. And there are a lot of, all those kids are good, all of them, you know, and so it's just really nice to see a public housing kid be able to win that. Yeah.
You're the face of the organization, but you've got to have a staff of people behind you. You've got 300 plus units, maintenance, assistants. Talk about some of your staff, where they come from, and how connected they are to the city.
Well, we have in the maintenance area, Mike Party. He was the first one I hired in April of 2000, and he's actually come out of a business background. And then the supervisor under him, we just brought him on about a year ago, Tony Tate, and he's got a lot of housing experience. We've got L.V. Baker has been there 20, almost 30-some years. Daryl Skaggs, Sam Farmer, Deion Watts, and then two newer guys that we just brought in a year ago that have, I forget what combination of years, 100 and some years of experience in maintenance. And just teasing Baker today, you know, he's got to get some, he got some medical things that needs to be taken care of. So I told him, I said, we just come on back in a wheelchair and tell people what to do. We were just joking with him. I know everybody's, you know, they're going to have their time or whatever. But they have a really good crew of guys. And then, of course, at office, Lisa Scheib is the manager of finance and benefits, and she's been about 3-4 years. And Lisa Beach just started about a year and a half ago. She's administrative assistant. Deborah Grimes has been there the longest. She's been there since '76. And I joke with her sometime and say, you know, she just came right out of preschool, you know. And then Billy Ketron, who actually handles the public housing portfolio, has been there 30-plus years. And then, of course, you have Judy Stair has been there about 20, and then Shelley Allen and Sandy Jordan been there about a year or so. And they're fairly new people. We've had some people that just retired about a year or two ago and so forth. And so there's been some turnover, but very dedicated. And one of the things that I must say about all of them is, you know, this is a people business, and you have to like people. And if you don't like people, don't get in public housing. You know, you have to like people. You just do. And I enjoy people, working with people, and they make my day. So sometimes not always the way I like it, but that's part of life, you know. So
as you take on the renovation, you talked about having a 501c3. I'm sure people are going, well, what kind of budget are they working on? What kind of money are they bringing in? What kind of money is going out? You mentioned the relationship, obviously, with the federal government.
Right.
To renovate 300 units, that's going to take some money, which you all have done with Townsend. You mentioned where you got some of that. How are those funds brought in? How are those funds distributed?
Based on our occupancy, as far as of the 303 units, we get so much subsidy per occupied unit per month. And one of the things we've been able to do with HUD's blessings and part of their rules is units we've taken offline that are vacant, we get subsidy for them as well because we're going to be rehabbing them. So basically on an annual basis, we get about $3.2 million a year total. And then what we do is with the bathroom remodels that we're doing, we take so many of those every year and do, like this year I think it's 30 or 35, and it's going to be about 160,000, maybe close to 200,000 per slot. And then we'll do that over a period of 4 or 5 years, whatever it is, and be able to have all the bathroom done. So it comes in incrementally over a period of time. And then with the voucher program, which is another program, we've got 273 privately owned properties that we contract with property owners with. That money comes directly from HUD and goes directly to the landlord. And the tenant, they pay no more than 30% of their monthly adjusted income for rent, and then we pay the remaining amount.
We keep hearing nationally, not just here, that people are being priced out of the housing market. Particularly in urban areas where you have people coming in. Are you seeing that here? Are we finding that
Not
in
yet.
this community?
Not really here. I did see it in California. It was pretty sad. I worked in San Mateo County in the city, Burlingame, San Carlos, which is in the Bay Area near the San Francisco airport. there were times where, now our fair market rent out there at the time in the 90s for an efficiency, which is basically a one-room apartment with a refrigerator, stove, and bathroom, was $1,200 a month efficiency. And you'd have people in line that had 2 years worth of rent in their hand that worked at places like Oracle, Sun Microsystems. You know, they're making a couple $100,000 a year, but it was close to where they worked at. And they actually were paying landlords 2 years in advance and paying $1,500, $1,600, $1,700 a month for an efficiency. So we had people, you know, you had $1,200 to work with, $1,000 to work with, and couldn't find anywhere. And then the market kind of flipped a little bit, and so there were some that were able to get into some places, and then it went back again. And then when Google built a plant, a huge place between East Palo Alto all the way down to Redwood City on some marshland, some infield land. And I have a friend that owns property out there. She's had the property since the 60s, and she bought them for like $50,000 or $60,000. Well, now they're worth $900,000 to $1 million, and she's renting them, getting $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month. She got 10 homes, and so she called. She says, "Derek, I just love Google. I just love Google." I said, "What are you talking about?" And she told me. I said, "Well, I love them too. Now give me one of your houses, you know." But so she got 10 homes, 6 to 7,000. Is it? Yeah, 6 to 7,000 a month. Like it's nothing. And so she's traveling. She was calling from France, I think, one time, and just traveling all the time. But Google is 1 hour from, not even an hour. I mean, 1 mile from her home. They have shuttles. They come pick them up.
Right.
They help with their food. They help with the clothes. They help with child care. They take the kids. They do everything. They just want you there. And as a result of that, you know, they're like huge. It's like, I'm saying 5-6 miles worth of buildings, Google buildings that are out there. And so it's booming. When you hear Silicon Valley, those kind of things, booming. And
what does Richmond need in the way of housing? You look at housing, I'm sure, in a number of different ways. I know you, beyond public housing. What does Richmond need in the way of housing?
Probably
housing stock.
Probably affordable housing. You know,
define that for me.
Housing based on income, where a person can be able to pay rent or buy it without having nothing left every month. I mean, having something else to pay for the utilities, food, things for kids, and so forth. So something that's reasonable and affordable, and then good quality housing. There's a lot of older homes here, and one of the strange things, the paradoxes in this city, you have homeless people in empty homes. People that are living in Glen Miller and the gazebos, the areas, and those kind of things, but you got empty homes. And in some cases, the people that are there used to live in a home because they didn't have the resources. And so the other thing would be, which I think is good, the Excel Center has really helped turn the perception of the community around by people being able to get their diplomas and so forth, because that was a big mark against us as a city, an area where you didn't have people with degrees or with high school education and so forth. So that's helped, and that'll help the earning power for people to be able to afford it. But affordable, quality homes, and then a lot of homes here are in good shape, just need some work to be rehabbed and kind of build up a little bit. We used to have in California a rental rehab program where they actually would rehab the home and make it habitable for people to be able to live in and so forth, and that would be a good thing to have through the community development block program that they have around the country, actually.
We've got about 3 minutes left. What
Sure.
haven't I asked you that you think the community needs to know?
Wow, good question. I don't want to take all the 3 minutes with us. I think we've covered everything. As I guess I can just say, we just certainly enjoy providing a service as an agency in this community. I always say, if it wasn't for the residents that we serve, we wouldn't have anything to do. We wouldn't have a job. And so we appreciate the residents that we serve. We appreciate the landlords that are part of our program, the voucher program. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be able to serve the people that we do. You can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have willing participants that are willing to comply with what's going on and honor the requirements that HUD has, then you really have nothing. So we just appreciate the partnerships we have within the community, people that work with us, support us, And even the people sometimes that give us a hard time, that's part of life. That helps us learn how to respect and interact with people as well. So, and appreciate you again having us here to share in this time. So
Glad to do it.
yeah.
When you are opening the building and for a little
absolutely,
inspection,
yes.
definitely reach
Okay.
out. Love to be able to see it and show the community as part of
Absolutely.
it.
Great.
Derek White, Executive Director of the Housing Authority of the City of Richmond, Indiana. I appreciate the time today.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
And thanks for watching this week's In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV, Channel 11. And before we get out of here, a couple of things to remind you. One, my weekly browbeating. Please register to vote. It's very simple. Go to indianavoters.com and you can check your voter registration. You can register to vote. You can find out about polling places. You have until April 6th to do it, but don't put it off till the last minute. There's free tax service available at Morrison Reeves Library on Wednesdays through April 8th, 10 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Go check that out. The Winter Farmers Market is taking place every Saturday at the Richmond Senior Center between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. Don't forget, SNAP dollars are doubled. There's fresh produce and a whole lot more. The Winter Farmers Market going on through April at the Richmond Senior Center. Another season of Let's Talk. That's 3 live programs from the WCTV studios. The first one is coming up this Tuesday, February 11th from 7 to 8 p.m. The topic is managing grief. The guests are going to be Keith Webster and Jennifer Claypool, and this year there is a new host, Cheryl LaForge. So definitely check that out if you can. That will be an interesting topic, managing grief, and the topics will change. We'll do one of those every couple of weeks. Crimson Artery is going on at the Richmond Art Museum. It's works by Carrie Longley and Joseph Swanson. It will be hanging until April 4th, so definitely want to take a look at that. And if you're needing a play group, someplace for your young one, Birth to 5 has you covered. On the screen, you'll see 5 different locations, one for each day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Get out and enjoy it. It's being made possible by United Way and the Wayne County Foundation. If you missed any of this program or want to see it again, tonight at 10:30, also tomorrow, twice on Saturday, and twice on Sunday. It'll also be available on video on demand. Thanks for watching. I wish you well.